Hi everyone, my name is Juliana. I'm with WiCyS Cyber, and today with us we have Arlyssa. We'll continue our series on cybersecurity pathways. Arlyssa, welcome to WiCyS Cyber. If you can introduce yourself and define your role in cybersecurity for us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Juliana. My name is Arlyssa Jaquez. I work for Verizon as a security architect. I've been in cybersecurity for over 10 years now, so more of a senior professional, and really enjoy it. Thank you for having me
Oh,
here.
yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were first introduced to cybersecurity, whether that's in an official capacity or just like super informal? What was your first introduction to cyber?
Yeah, so my first aha moment about cybersecurity was way before. I'm not a pioneer, but I guess you could call me a pioneer because my journey into cyber started before like there was any kind of structure around courses in cybersecurity or any of that. So my very first exposure, I was straight out of college working for Lockheed Martin in
Hmm.
Fort Worth, and I was a systems engineer. So I got to sit right next to the security team and made friends with some of those professionals and just kind of learned about what they do. But I wasn't interested in security at that point because even though these people had like all these degrees, masters, and everything, that team got laid off.
Oh,
It was like one person from that team that got to stay, but everybody else got laid off because the company just didn't think that they needed security at that time. Fast forward, that was my introduction to security because I would ask her, he would say, "What do y'all do? Like, what certifications do y'all have? And like, how do you like?" And she kind of gave me an insight into the details about cyber. So fast forward, like 5 years from that, and the company's the complete opposite. They're trying to ramp up to hire cybersecurity professionals. At that point, I was already part of the engineering leadership development program, so I got to rotate to different
Mm.
engineering year-long rotations. And I just knew that my last one, I wanted it in a security team because I was doing my master's in systems engineering and I got exposed to the security aspects of it again. And so I just found it very interesting. Plus, I saw all of the hacking things that were happening, and I just, curiosity led me into the cybersecurity world, and I asked to be transitioned my last rotation into a security team, which I did. And I just started learning from there. Hands on, everything was
Amazing.
very new.
Yeah. So can we take a step back? You said your master's is in systems engineering, correct?
Yes.
What about when you were going through like college? What where was your head at? Had you heard of cyber at that point? Were you in a technical degree?
Yes,
Nope.
so my bachelor's was industrial engineering. Um,
Okay, love
not
that.
cybersecurity was not, I don't even think it was a term. Back then when I learned about security, it was called more on the information assurance
Mm-hmm.
teams, information security. So cybersecurity became a thing later. More awareness about the field became more prevalent towards 2014-ish. And prior to that, um, there really was not a field, at least not in my university, that said, "Hey, you want to study
Yep.
cybersecurity?" None of that. So the study, everything, and I did industrial engineering as a bachelor's and then the systems engineering as a master's. The systems engineering did give me a little bit of exposure to security because part of the systems engineering life cycle is what we call the ILITs, like maintainability, and security was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I got that little bit of exposure and I added to that with like team exposure. So I literally learned everything on the job about where I need to go, like look for more resources to study, learn, teach myself kind of a thing. That's basically what I did.
I love that. I think a lot of people as it's changing a lot, right? Even when I was in college, there was no my university didn't have a degree in cybersecurity, but now they do, and they do have a master's as well. So times are changing a lot, so it's interesting to see. I mean, a lot of people I've met in cybersecurity, they came from backgrounds that were not, on paper cybersecurity, like very different degrees. I think that's what makes it even better.
Yes, very
You
much.
mentioned a little bit about certifications, right? Can we go a little bit into that topic? Because there's different schools of thoughts
Mhm.
here. Some people think that you definitely need certifications. Speak about your experience so far, right? Because I know a lot of people right now try to get their entry level certs, and then if they want to go into management, that they look at things like CISSP. What's your take, and in your journey, how necessary were certifications?
So I know that when I started in the security team, the cybersecurity team at Lockheed Martin, it became kind of a goal for me to get the CISSP because that's what the more senior level professionals on the team had. And so I right away I knew I would like to get my CISSP, but the guidance was to start out with Security Plus. Um,
Hmm.
and it started to make sense after, you start going through the material. Okay, yeah, makes sense to do the hands-on stuff first. I think a little Security Plus is a little bit more like hands-on rather than like broad. It's a little bit more in detail. So I definitely started with the Security Plus certification. It was not required. So there was no requirement for me when I started in cybersecurity to get into or to obtain a certification. That kind of became a thing more later in my career in cyber. Um, Towards probably I would say 5 years into the field is when the requirements started to change.
Mm,
So the federal government required for people that had hands-on, like if they were going to be hands-on with any kind of servers or any kind of server rooms, databases, any of that stuff, to have the Security Plus. And so
interesting.
that's why I ended up going for my Security Plus first. But prior to that, it was not a requirement. It just kind of became one later towards my career. And then the CISSP, it was just a goal for me. Obviously it's one of the cybersecurities that's more like elite, you would say, for professionals that are interested in cybersecurity but want to get more of the management or leadership routes. And I took that one in 2020. 2020 is when I got my CISSP. No, I'm so lying. I don't even remember. But it was already at Verizon.
I can
2021.
any of us remember what happened in 2020? Because I that all erased from my memory anyway. So I
Yeah, no
feel like
kidding.
I
So
did those years back.
I can't remember the exact year, but it was already at Verizon. So at Lockheed, I didn't
Okay.
have the certifications. It was already at Verizon when I obtained my CISSP, and it was more of a goal. Now, you asked, what do I think about certifications? I definitely think that, especially if you're transitioning from a different career path, I think the Security Plus is kind of evidence that, you do know how to like do certain baseline things, that what I would call it, like networking, security protocols, those kinds of stuff are what you're going to learn in the Security Plus certification. So I do think it would help from that perspective if you don't have like a more traditional background in cybersecurity.
Hmm.
Now I know there's career fields that could probably like check those boxes off for you. But yeah, definitely if you're coming from a different area, Security Plus is kind of your way to understand the scope, the different things that you could do within cybersecurity. And the other certification, I think it just depends. I think it depends on what career path you want to take.
So
So
let's take yours, right? Let's take a cybersecurity architect. That can mean different things in different places. From what you've seen, what type of certification will help or help people stand out if they want to pursue such a role?
definitely start with Security Plus, your CISSP, but then there's also the OSEP, so that offensive security. So anything that's going to show that you have hands-on experience is helpful. Even to like, okay, and my take on certifications is if you have more than 2 or 3, you probably already have too much. I once heard a recruiter saying, like if we see more than 2 certifications on your, title, we're the first thing that just comes to our mind is, wow, they're paying a lot of money because all of those certifications still require your annual maintenance fees, right? And it's
Mm,
telling people that you're a very good test taker, but it's not necessarily, you could have a CISP or Security Plus. It's not necessarily going to tell a recruiter that you're really good hands-on, like that you understand everything. So if you could show more of that hands-on, like go open up your virtual boxes at home, like set that up for just individual personal projects. Go do Hack the Box, try Hack Me. Like those websites also provide very valuable experience for people that are trying to get into cyber. So
all right.
from a certification perspective, I don't, I advise you to start with, of course, Network Security Plus to get an understanding of what cybersecurity is, an understanding of the field in general, but don't focus too much on what certifications should I obtain. Um, my path into CISSP was just a goal for me to get it because it's just one of those elite ones, and I do want to follow in that leadership track. I think another thing that I'm focusing a lot right now is the cloud security. So from that perspective, the CCSP would be a good one. But even if I don't get the actual certification, um, I I think I could still prove that my experience by going into these GCP like boxes and I'm playing with what Google has, the Google labs, and then what AWS, like they also have labs, like just those things I think would already suffice from the package as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, that's I think that's a crucial element to the hands-on. A lot of people right now, unless they studied cybersecurity, I've met a lot of people that are puzzled about the idea. Well, everyone keeps talking about a home lab. Well, what does that even mean? So I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the cloud providers because I think there's like costs associated too, right? But there's ways you can, set up like billing alerts so you won't get like too, won't
Well,
pay
you
too
can
much
set
to
up
the
a
cloud
virtual,
providers.
yeah, even if you do like a virtual box, those are free. You could go set up
Yeah,
a virtual box and download and set up whatever operating system you need to play with and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
there's free
There
resources out there now.
and I mean also things like attending competitions in person, like capture the flag, that can also count as experience. It just makes me think at what point, let's say you're a recruiter or a hiring manager and you look at a resume for cybersecurity architect, would that be enough, right? Think about a person that is just beginning. Would that be enough to show that, oh, like my project is like completing hack the box, try hack me, and having like attending many hackathons and capture the flags. Is it enough, you think, to get people in the door for an interview for a cybersecurity architect role?
So as a new person, I think it would be enough for like an analyst position is more of my
Analysts, yeah.
opinion.
Because
Yeah,
it's
the architecture position is a little bit more advanced.
yeah.
So you'd have to like start out maybe as an analyst, but those hack the box, the CTFs that you play through hack the box, those things are going to teach you like those crucial tools that, you could use. And all those tools, you should be writing them on your resume because you've got the exposure and experience with those just through those projects that you um, played with. So yeah, those should definitely go on your resume. Now, yeah, the step into cybersecurity would be more of a early career or beginner level path. There's a website that's really good. I think it's gosh, I always forget the name of it. Let me look it up. Cyber Career.
Yeah, I,
Uh,
I think I know which
you know
one you
which one
mean,
it
but
is?
you can send it later. We can like
Yeah.
include the link. But It's interesting. So you mentioned this being a little bit more of a like senior role, right? Like you can't get like entry level right away. Can you talk to us a little bit about the day-to-day, what it means to be a cybersecurity architect at the company where you're at?
Yeah, and a little bit about the pathway. So I
Hmm.
started as an engineer at Lockheed Martin, systems engineer, and then I went into system security engineering, and I did that for several years before I got a promotion into a security architect role. So that was kind of like the pathway in there.
Can you describe for those that might not be familiar what those roles that came before this really meant? Like, what did you do? What type of work did you do every day?
So systems engineering is about looking at processes or products as a whole. And based on what part of the life cycle you're in, you're either writing the requirements, which I did work on for a lot. Like when there was a customer that came with a specific request, we'd look at the request from the customer, but then we'd come down and say, how do we write this up in a design language? So we'd have to write the requirements for those designs as the systems engineers. Now, as a systems security engineer, you're still doing the similar thing. You're writing requirements from that perspective early on in the life cycle of the product, but you're writing requirements more from the security perspective. So you're still working with the systems engineers or the electrical engineers or the mechanical or aerospace engineers, whatever's on that team, and writing requirements. Or if you're later on in the process where the product's already available, we just need a one change to design. Something was impacting something else, so we need to work on a new design. So you kind of work through what are the impacts. If I have a plane and you're changing this certain part of the plane, how is that going to affect one, from
Very
a systems
important.
engineer perspective? How's it going to affect the flying? From a security engineering perspective, if you're changing a computer system on this plane, what interfaces am I changing? Like, those are the kind of things you're looking at. Like, what new accesses am I providing? Am I impacting any accesses?
Hmm.
So that's kind of what the system security engineer is going to work on. Now, the architect, it's very similar, but it's a little different. So the engineer actually like has to work. So the architect is going to be more of like the advisor. um, this is the design that we have. This is what needs to be done. These are the controls that you need to implement. The engineer goes and helps them implement those. So writes the details of how you implement those.
Hmm.
Yeah, so those kind of the differences a little bit. And I'm talking more from a system perspective. Now, if you
Yeah.
have an application or a network, which I do now because I'm at Verizon, right?
Yep.
So from that perspective, you're looking more at, what if it's the network, what are my interfaces in this application, and who's being impacted by the changes to the application. Or we look at applications actually that Verizon develops, or any other, because I know we're a telecom company, but we are actually more of a technology company, and a lot of people don't know that all the other products that we have. So we look at these things from, identity and access management perspective. So you run scripts, you understand what are your accesses, what are your different ports, different protocols that are turned on, different interfaces, the users. Try to look at it as a whole and understand the doors that are open for any kind of vulnerabilities, and just advise from that perspective of recommending what controls to implement to secure the product, pretty
I
much.
love that. That's a good picture, right? We're trying to get people to understand, is this something that they would like to do or not? And it sounds like cybersecurity architect touches a lot of things as a role. And but maybe talk a little bit about how much of your time, your week, let's say, do you spend like on your own, collaborating with others? Is it a lot of like individual work where your head's down analyzing things? Is it talking to a lot of people, kind of in between? Give us a little bit of that picture.
Yeah, no, the majority of it, you're going to always work with teams. So you're going to always be working with people. There's not very much alone time. I would say the alone would be your personal desire to automate something, for example. So you work on that. But for the most part, even in engineering, you're always on a team, and it's always a team that works together to try to identify different areas. You split up the work and decide, you're doing this, you're doing that, but then you come together, agree as a team if it was correct or not, or if any changes are needed. So yeah, your ability to communicate with different stakeholders is very important in any kind of product development teams or integrated product teams, any of those. It's very important that you are able to communicate with the different stakeholders for
So
them.
I was going to say, right, like the stakeholders from the system engineers to like product teams, anything else that comes to mind that like you interact with a lot other than those like specific teams, or is that pretty much it?
So internally, it's always
Hmm.
going to be, of course, everybody that interfaces, all your different interfaces to the product. Externally, though, it's your customer. So those, they are also stakeholders in the product. So externally, and I'm looking at a system now, so my mind is really like at the system perspective. You're interacting with the customer if that's your role. Um, it's mostly sometimes the lead roles or whatnot that get to interact with those customers, but then with the different teams that whose products are kind of bundled up into your one product. So security is just one part of it, right? So you're in addition to all the other teams that are also have their piece bundled into the product.
So just to clarify, so in cyber, there's also sales roles that are sometimes called security architects. And that's nothing like that, right? Just to clarify, it's not a, because you do deal with customers for those roles too, but your job is to position and architect solutions to meet their security initiatives for an organization, right?
Yeah, so not I've not yet interacted with the sales org yet in the cyber world.
Okay.
I know
Okay.
they do exist, so I know that the
They do exist. Yeah.
yeah, everybody that's in the sales position, that is a security architect is probably because they definitely understand, and they need
Yeah.
to if they're going to sell the product, right? So they understand the security pieces of the product, and so they're technically a security architect. But from my experience, it's been the actual working, not on the sell side. More of if I'm interacting with an external stakeholder, it's because I have completed a specific design and I need them to test it. I need them to sign it off and take it. That's
Gotcha.
kind of my has been my experience with interfacing with the external stakeholders. Not so much because I need to sell it to them.
Perfect.
I've
Love
never.
it. Glad we clarified that. So now the last question I want to leave you with is we talked a little bit about this, right? Collaborating, but we want people to understand the culture of the role of the cybersecurity architect role. So what is the culture like? And by that I mean, what are some characteristics that if a person had, it would help them thrive in this type of environment?
Yeah, I love that question. So I definitely understand that you have to have the technical like desire to be technical there because you have to try to stay curious, one, to get yourself to like learn. And a lot of times you have to do it on your own.
Mm,
Outside of, you've already taken classes, but cybersecurity is very similar to engineering. It changes so much, probably more than engineering. So it changes often, and you have to be able to stay on top, like that perpetual learning ability. You just have to embrace it because one, you have to stay curious, embrace perpetual learning, just to stay on top of the technical skills. I know it's very hard to quickly, like, AI is the big thing right now. And there's a lot of people that have been doing AI for a very long time, but it's also new to the industry. Like, it's new to every industry is trying to incorporate this. So the number of people who have been working with AI for a long time is very small. So what companies have to do now is get their employees to start
Yeah.
like coming up to par with that subject. And I think that that's very crucial for you to be able to continue in cyber and succeed, is your ability to learn, to the desire to learn, and even learn on your own. So anything
Kind
that
of,
will help you. Go ahead.
so kind of like attaching yourself, like if you see AI like being a need right now, right? Like pivoting, not pivoting, but like sort of taking initiative. Don't wait for anyone to come up with the training. Like as an architect, you have to think of the gaps and then start thinking like an architect with this new landscape of all this AI stuff coming up, right? Think about like the gaps and look into not necessarily certifications to add something to your bucket, because again, it's pretty new, but look into there's a lot of centers out there, centers of excellence, or there's a lot of institutes that are operating as a nonprofit, and we can add some of those names like at the end, attach the list, but they are putting so much information for free out there. There's organizations that are offering AI learning series. So do anything that you can to stand out, but also be that champion within your team that took the initiative to, oh, this is the new thing. I'm going to go focus and learn everything I can about it. Set up alerts to hear about the latest vulnerabilities. And you don't have to be perfect at it, but at least like you're the one that's staying in the loop, so
Exactly.
that when it comes up, you can like bring up your knowledge.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Staying curious is a big part of these types of fields, definitely. So you can gain that technical proficiency is if you're curious about it, you're going to learn it and you're going to be able to adapt very quickly to the changing environments because they do change often. So.
And as so when I think of an architect, is there anything that people can to practice maybe designing systems? Like, is there a certification that focuses on that, like knowing the architecture of things? I know you said security plus, knowing the protocols, like all that, but is there anything that comes to mind from more of like an architectural perspective, training systems, if they haven't had formal training in that?
So, as systems design thinking, I would
Design
recommend,
thinking.
yeah, any books on system design thinking. I don't know that there's any certification specifically for security architect. There might be, and I'm just not familiar with it, and I haven't even tried to look into it, to be honest.
Mhm.
But I obviously, if you do CISSP, the security engineering and architecture is one of the domains for it. And from that, you can kind of gain some understanding of it. It's also part of the Security Plus, right? So you go through the domains in the Security Plus. So you get a little bit of a introduction to it in those, but to actually get hands-on experience with any type of system design, um,
Hey, you
that's
learned
a
it
really
on the
good
job.
question.
You learned
Uh,
it on the job. That's the
yeah,
answer.
that's kind of
Uh,
what happened to me. I
yeah.
don't know, you know,
And talk to as many people that do this, right? Like go look for cybersecurity architects. And like it can mean different things at different companies. But I think the best thing for people to do is take initiative, stay curious by reaching out to people, learning what they did, what worked for them, and then you create your own recipe out of that. With that said, did you have any last comments before we wrap it up?
no, I appreciate you taking the time to do this for everybody, and I hope it helps somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Arlyssa.
No, thank you.